It looks like the political landscape in the Philippines is heating up. We're going to be talking about that in today's video. Link to the original video is down in the description below. If you like the commentary and discussions we do here, consider subscribing. And without further ado, let's get into learning about this together.
Lahat
This is the Vice
tumulong
President
sa
of the
akin.
Philippines.
Nagbilin na ako, ma'am. Pag namatay ako, sabi ko, huwag ka tumigil hanggang hindi mo mapatay sila.
That is crazy to say. That's kind of bold.
She's threatening to kill the president if she's killed.
Yeah, that's what I thought she said. Okay, I thought I was misinterpreting and understanding that, but that's actually whoa. Okay.
Even though Filipino politics is known for high drama, this was extraordinary.
Right now, the tensions have already evolved into an open feud.
The political battle between President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Vice President Sara Duterte is playing out like a thriller. But there's more at stake than meets the eye.
Filipinos understand the underdog situation that they're in terms of geopolitics.
The Philippines is on the front line of China's territorial claims in the South China Sea.
Claims is putting it lightly. China is expanding. This is one of the things that we really don't talk about on my channel, mostly because there's really no context to it. But China is expanding. They're very aggressive right now, and it's crazy to even see like some countries, specifically in Southeast Asia, that are like, oh, this would never happen to us. China's our friend. It's like, nah. China is trying to expand because they understand that the window of becoming the best country or the strongest country in the world is closing dramatically fast. And so they have to make a move soon. So this notion that all these other Asian countries think that they're going to be avoiding the wrath of whatever China decides to do is it's completely, that's a fantasy land. They're going to do what they're going to do regardless of what you feel or if you're their friend or not.
And would play a major role in any US effort to counter a possible Chinese invasion of Taiwan.
The Philippines is a key ally for the US here in Asia. It is located in a very strategic spot.
But that's also putting it lightly. The Philippines has a very special relationship outside of military relationships with the US. So like there's a special bond between Americans and Filipinos that I can say that it's just, again, more than just the military. Whether it's, a lot of the healthcare workers in America, some of the, by far the best, I would say, healthcare workers are Filipinos. We import a lot of the technology and business to the Philippines. So like I think there's a very like intimate relationship between the two countries that is just more than what they're claiming.
But this alliance is under pressure as Sara Duterte
Like Americans love Filipinos. Like I grew up with a lot of Filipino friends and I love them to death. So
backs closer ties with China.
Oh.
And her case is being helped by aggressive US tariffs.
Well, President Trump says the U.S. has reached that trade deal with the Philippines.
Trump's presidency has upended just about every assumption you could have about America and the world.
Okay, that is so misleading. I mean, obviously this is Bloomberg. I'm going to be honest. They're very biased, but this is extremely misleading. First of all, aggressive tariffs, they're not aggressive at all, right? They're entirely fair. They're called reciprocal tariffs. So if you tariff me 10%, okay, you tariff me 10, I tariff you 10. That's completely fair. You do 20, I do 20. You do 50, I do 50. If you want a special deal, let's work it out. The idea of communication behind these, for some reason, these news reports don't even want to talk about. And this notion that America can't use tariffs to just stop all these other countries from taking advantage of them, to me, is ridiculous. Not saying that the Philippines was doing it. I don't think the Philippines were. If anything, I think the Philippines have always been really good to America, and America's been really good to the Philippines. But there's other countries that were taking advantage of the trade of the goodwill and the trade of America. So they, rather than just being like, oh, we're only going to do it for these few countries, we're going to go across the board and make sure that we're all being fair to each other. That's it. And the thing is that this notion that, oh, Trump is the one doing it, the reality is this was going to happen no matter what, because Americans were getting frustrated with how the world was taking advantage of America when it comes to trade. Just because we have a lot of money doesn't mean that we're just going to we want to hand it out for free. We want to do good, but we don't want to have to be we don't want you to steal it from us. Do you understand what I'm saying? And again, this is not specifically the Filipinos. I'm talking about other countries in the world. Filipinos have always been good with America, and America loves Filipinos. So this video already is being very, very misleading.
The Philippines sits in the middle of the China-US power struggle. Which way it swings will have consequences far beyond its borders.
For a long time. Again, China is not playing around right now. They are very, very, very expansionist.
Meet the Marcoses. This is former President Ferdinand Marcos and his wife and former First Lady Imelda Marcos, who you may remember is quite the fan of footwear. And this is their son, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., also known as the current president of the Philippines. Now meet the Dutertes. This is Rodrigo Duterte, another former president, and his daughter, Sara Duterte, the current vice president of the Philippines, who, 14 years ago, fell out with the sheriff.
What? I didn't know. Wait, what? Wait, no. What is this about? No, hold on. Okay. If you're new to my channel, what's up? My name is GATO Attack, or also known as GATO. I ask a lot of questions, and these questions are not because I'm just asking random things. I'm usually asking because I want you to answer them, and I'll go down in the comments and read them, because I do want to learn. The whole purpose of me watching this video is learning and hosting a conversation for all of us to learn. That being said, it's gonna be, if you're a regular of the channel, this is gonna be probably one of the first questions that I ask, that I really actually want context to this. Why the hell is she punching somebody, a sheriff, in the face? Maybe she'll explain it, but maybe the video will explain it, but if it does not, I would love more context on this, because that is wild to see.
Problem is, President Marcos and Vice President Duterte were a team, but now they're at each other's throats and have very different visions for their country's foreign policy. Marcos Jr., referred to as Bongbong, has cultivated close ties with Washington, while his political rival has followed in her father's more pro-China footsteps.
Sara Duterte is trying to take a more neutral stance to it. She wants to work equally with both the US and China.
Any change in the direction of the Philippines' foreign policy stance will have an impact not only here locally, not only in Asia, but the world at large.
And here's why. The Philippines was a US colony till 1946. Located just south of Taiwan, the island chain is critical to the control of waters off the southern coast of China. Post-pandemic, its economy has grown steadily and faster than most of its regional peers.
The Philippines matters to the US as it's among its allies that it uses to secure trade routes and peace in the region since World War II.
But okay, so there's a difference in phrasing here, because like there is countries that do neutrality with both powers. Now that being said, it can get complicated. So like let's use the example of Indonesia, which we cover a lot on this channel. They try to play neutral with China, US, and India. But even though they're neutral with all three of them in their region, they feel a lot of pressure from India and China because they're close to them. So regardless of what their relationship was with the US is not in the area. We're not in the region. So it could be the best relationship in the world, but we're not in the region. So at the end of the day, it kind of doesn't matter, right? Because they're still feeling the pressure of India and China at the end of the day. So it's one of those things where like if you're looking at this relationship, you have to really consider who's at your door, right? And so I use the example of Indonesia, right? So let's say they overly lean to and rely on the US for security, then that's going to make China mad, and China's closer to them. But if they overly lean to China, then they're going to lose access to all the weapons and technology that the US has. So it's just one of those things where like you got to find a balance, but again, like I said, you still are their neighbor, and the choice you make is going to be very, very important. Not just for now, but for future generations. Like if we look at China, for example, they're quote unquote trying to be ready for war by 2027. What does that mean? So ask yourself that.
too.
But relations between Washington and Manila are caught up in the political feud we mentioned earlier.
Which again, a lot of this I didn't even know about. This is insane. Like crazy to know that this was happening in the Philippines.
Marcos's term is due to end in 2028. Duterte is emerging as his likely successor. Their alliance was extraordinary to begin with, but their open hostility even more so. So how did things get so wild, and what can that tell us about what to expect next? Marcos Sr. led the country for 21 years, from 1965 to 1986. He and his wife are accused of stealing $10 billion from the
So they're accused by Bloomberg, the person making these videos. Interesting.
state during his term, as well as torturing and killing thousands of political opponents. But to his supporters, Marcos Sr. was a hero who drove the Philippines' economic development. Former President Rodrigo Duterte served from 2016 to 2022. He pivoted the Philippines towards warmer ties with China and away from the US. Currently, he's in a prison cell in The Hague. More on that later. The alliance of these two prominent families was a sure path to power.
So again, like the only reason why I commented on the American stuff is because I want to clear up any misinformation. When it comes to some of these claims about these specific families and political candidates, I'm not going to give an opinion because I don't really know, right? And that's part of why I feel like I like having these conversations is because I'm here to learn from you guys. But also, I'm coming in extremely open-minded, right? Because again, the Bloomberg video, the video that we're watching was the one that reported on this allegation of stealing billions. So if they already, if this video is misinformation, then it's like they're quoting themselves to misinform, right? So again, this is why I love having these conversations. And so whatever you think about either one of them, I say, please be polite in the comments, but don't be afraid to share your opinions because I will try to learn from them.
Uniting disparate factions of the country into what they branded the Uni Team. In the 2022 presidential election, Marcos and Duterte romped to victory.
So the 2022 elections is essentially a coalition of convenience between two political families, harnessing the votes from north and south of the country.
It did not take a long time before the Uni Team showed problems.
Sara wanted the position of Defense Secretary. She was given education, and things only got worse from there.
Her tenure within that Department of Education started to show that there were misuse of funds.
Oh, whoa. So wait a minute. So, but she was a vice president, but then was moved to education. How does that work? Can someone clarify that? Because that seems like a dramatic downgrade, but also defense is dramatically different than education. I'm really confused here. If again, this is why I rely so much on you guys because there is whoa.
An allegation Sara denies. As part of that investigation, a trusted aide of Duterte's was detained. The vice president decided to go live on Zoom.
This country is going to hell because we are led by a person who doesn't know how to be a president and who is a liar.
Duterte claimed her life was under threat and she had a contract killer ready to assassinate the president if she was killed.
What? How can you claim that? In America, to be thrown in jail for that. That still seems a little dramatic. There's no way that's actually what happened. Like, I try to, again, I want to be as open-minded, but I just feel like that's too crazy to be true. I mean, we saw that video earlier, but maybe it was taken out of context. Let me know in the comments if that's really what happened, and maybe even give me another example of something maybe she said.
Sara Duterte is known as a feisty personality here in the Philippines. She's really not afraid to speak her mind. But it was really shocking at that time when you have a president and a vice president who just a few years ago were projecting an image of unity. And here you have the vice president declaring an assassination threat on the president.
Is revenge from the grave a crime?
But the tensions between Marcos and Duterte did not end there. In March this year, Marcos government acted on an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court against Sara's father, former President Rodrigo Duterte.
He was charged by the International Criminal Court with the murder of dozens of alleged drug dealers, but human rights groups say the victims number in the thousands. He was flown to The Hague. But if this was supposed to hurt Sara...
Wait, why? So I've heard a lot about Duterte, sorry. Because they talked a lot about him in the US, and they talked a lot about him negatively, but not saying what they allege about him isn't true, right? But it's really hard to know what is true because the same media that was reporting on him negatively are the same people openly lying about Trump too. So it's kind of like I'm kind of lost. So let me know in the comments what y'all's opinion of this stuff is, what you feel that it is, because what you feel that he did, and if it was overall seen as a positive thing. Because if we look at the same thing with El Salvador, people were like, "Oh, he's really harsh. He's acting like a dictator," but their country went from one of the most dangerous to one of the most safest in Latin America. So it's one of those things where does the means justify the end? But also, is it even accurate? Let me know in the comments. But also, at the end of the day, regardless of what he did, this guy's old. Why would you throw him in jail? I'm gonna throw that in there, okay? Because I know it doesn't really add to the conversation overall, but I just want to give my opinion on this little part. Even if he is guilty, this guy's super old. Why are you gonna throw him in jail? Doesn't really make a difference, right? Come on. I'm just gonna be fair here.
flown to The Hague.
The guy has a cane and he's walking. Come on.
But if this was supposed to hurt Sara, it backfired.
The Duterte clan heavily criticized this move. They portrayed this as also a surrender of Philippine sovereignty. So they said handing over the former president to the ICC was actually an act of kidnapping.
When kidnapping is allowed as a means of acquiring the jurisdiction of the accused, we think this too is a travesty of justice.
Just as the president and vice president split, so did their approach to foreign relations.
Under Marcos, the Philippines have allowed the U.S. to station more troops in more locations under their treaty agreements. There are now 9 locations in the Philippines, some of them very close to Taiwan, some of them facing the South China Sea, that the U.S. has access to and will rotate troops through, that can make investments, that will have a long-term presence.
Since Ferdinand Marcos came to power, he has really shifted the relationship with China and, of course, has moved much closer to the U.S.
Sara Duterte has been careful in portraying herself as pro-China.
There is no reason for you to lean towards the U.S. You have to always stay in the middle because you are not a part of the bigger conflicts.
I don't want to agree with her, but she's kind of, as an American who's been learning about this region, okay, I'm going to be completely fair here. As an American, I got chills even thinking about this. As an American who's been learning about this region, okay, I'm going to be completely fair here. What she is saying is true, but the problem is, it's not whether or not you are a part of it. It's whether or not China is going to make you a part of it. You understand? That's the issue here. because again, you can lean on the America as much as you want, but America is not physically located in the region. So regardless of how much you lean on them, China is always going to be there. And at any moment they decide, you know what? Time to not be, now you're a part of the bigger conflict. Hello, welcome to the party. What are you going to do? Be like, guys, we're in the middle. Like, we can't, like, you just can't. That's not how that works. That's not how the world works. And that's the whole point is the example I use of Indonesia. Indonesia is completely, they say as neutral as possible, but it still doesn't change the fact that India and China are trying to influence them all the time, right? Like, it's whoever your neighbors are, and whatever they decide to do is gonna bring you into that conflict no matter what. So she is 100% right. In theory, that would be the dream, but it's not what you decide. It's what China decides to do with you. If they bring you into the conflict, you are now in the conflict, and now you have to suddenly figure it out. That's not how that works. There's too much at stake.
She has said that the relationship between Beijing and Manila is not defined entirely by their tensions in the South China Sea.
And this is what those tensions look like. This footage is shot from a Filipino patrol ship being pursued by 2 Chinese vessels. Then this happens.
This was so crazy to see. I saw this video and I was like, that's crazy. The Filipino ship made the 2 Chinese boats crash. That's so crazy. That, first of all, shout out to all the Filipinos out there doing all these cool maneuvers in the water and getting these guys to crash and really wreck a ship. Crazy. But they're aggressive. China's aggressive. As much as you want to be neutral and like pretend they don't exist, China's coming after you. As soon as they decide to, that's when they're going to do it. You're in the conflict now. So that's just how it is. That's just, you know, if it wasn't China, it would be whoever the biggest power is in that region. That's just how geopolitics work.
The Chinese Navy vessel accidentally smashes across the bow of its sister ship. It's unknown if or how many Chinese sailors lost their lives in this collision.
Philippine vessels have been shown by authorities to have been water cannon, sideswiped, harassed by Chinese vessels.
China and the Philippines dispute who owns the islands and reefs in the South China Sea. China's vast claims are encompassed in what's known as the 10-dash line, which sweeps down from Taiwan to the Philippines, Malaysia, and up Vietnam's coast.
Nobody agrees with this, including a UN court that ruled in the favor of the Philippines, yet China is pushing full speed ahead with its insistence that it has sovereignty over pretty much the entire South China Sea.
And you can't ignore that. And then they're also building islands everywhere. And then they're also doing land grabs in Africa. So that the reality is, it's like, you can't just ignore them. You can't pretend like we're going to be neutral. They could never affect us if we just be neutral. That's not how that works. Not when you have an expansionist country like this. Like you just can't.
China's rapidly expanding its navy and rejects the UN court's ruling. It says it's committed to upholding freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. The Philippines and its much smaller navy are overmatched. The country's foreign policy walks a tightrope, with Marcos and Duterte tugging in different directions.
The country is very vulnerable to Beijing's influence, and without the US there to back them, there's very little they can do.
And that's the issue, right? Like, I, again, believe America is by far the strongest military. We have the strongest technology. We have a lot of money. We have the logistics. We have all this. The problem is, okay, no matter what we do, we just don't have enough people, physically enough people to start a large conflict in multiple places, especially against China. China just has so many people that if we engage China, then the rest of the world is going to really have to hunker down and figure it out, which is really one of the reasons why America has been pushing for NATO, for example, to hold up their end of the bargain, increase their military spending, and do all that jazz. That's why also, like, one of the things when we talk about military equipment on this channel, some people don't like that we celebrate countries buying some of the higher tier stuff because it's not fair to the countries that can't afford it. But it's like at the end of the day, it's like you just got to get what you can to protect yourself as a country and do what you can, what you can, with what you can. Um, there's different countries adopting the porcupine strategy by buying a bunch of javelins and using those to like basically intimidate China into being like, hey, if you attack us, it's going to cost you a lot. At the end of the day, it's like, again, like I said, as powerful America is, we just don't have enough physical people to be everywhere at once. We have bases everywhere, but at the end of the day, like we are so outnumbered by population that like, yes, our technology can like really make up for that, but it's still a lot of people that they have.
US security guarantees are the bedrock of the Philippines' maritime strategy, but Trump's presidency is casting a shadow on these ties.
That's being exaggerated. That's such an exaggeration. I don't know why Bloomberg does that.
The Philippines, just like any other country basically in the world, is a target of President Donald Trump's trade anger and tariff wars.
Philippines exports to the US are being hit with a 19% tariff. President Marcos.
Okay, Bloomberg is being so disingenuous right now.
Philippines exports to
19%. Some of the other tariffs were like 35%, 40%. What are we talking about? Like, yes, 19% is pretty rough, but at the end of the day, it's reciprocal. Whatever you give is what you get. So, and also there's from my understanding at the time of this video, there was other countries that worked special deals to get their rate lowered, and then other, investments and stuff.
The US are being hit with a 19% tariff. President Marcos flew to meet President Trump in July this year in the hope of getting a better deal. It didn't help.
Marcos got stuck with the same rate as everyone else did, despite the fact that they have opened up this access to US defense.
As Trump redefines America's role in the world, nations like the Philippines are left to wonder, can they still rely on the US?
The US is losing its commitment to its role as a peacemaker, and Trump is seeing these approaches to free trade and alliances as more of a hindrance.
This is such a disingenuous video at the end. This is crazy. Like, again, at the end of the day, America was going to do this regardless if it was Trump because of how unfair trade was towards America. It just doesn't make sense for any country to just put up with bad trade. Like, it doesn't, if you're constantly getting robbed, you can't just be like, well, don't worry, guys, I don't want to upset the robbers. What? That's insane. And again, it's just one of those things where it was going to happen regardless of Trump, who it was going to be, because again, the what Trump has is what you call a mandate, essentially a sweeping win that allowed basically the government to just go forward with everything that they wanted to do. Because when Trump won, he won the presidency. Republicans won the House. They won Congress. They won the Senate, and they won a lot of local governments. And so they basically were given. The people voted for them unanimously. And so that's why I say, like, this whole exaggeration of Trump is just really not understanding what's going on. Americans were fed up. If it wasn't Trump, it would have been someone else. Okay. So it's just, I hate that they're painting it like it's him just because it's a Trump derangement syndrome.
In the United States.
Meanwhile, the feud between Duterte and Marcos continues. Duterte has pulled off an incredible reversal of fortunes, avoided impeachment for threatening to have the president killed, and impeachment for alleged corruption. She's now, with her more China-friendly policies, the most popular candidate to be the next Philippine president.
After the arrest of her father, her popularity started to increase again, and the ratings for Marcos started to decline.
I still think that's kind of wild that you would arrest the lady's dad. That's just kind of, I mean, even if he was guilty of all this stuff and you believe that he is, the guy's so old, from what I've seen, that it's just like, why even throw him in jail? Like, I'm just not a fan of throwing old people in jail because it just doesn't make any sense at that point. Maybe, I don't know. But regardless, what she said earlier, I still think in an ideal world would work, but Philippines, I think, is just not in a position to afford that luxury. Maybe some other countries are, but whenever China decides to turn down the temperature, I think that's when it's best for it. But right now, you can't let your guard down because they're very aggressive right now.
The Trump administration is exerting economic pressure on its allies in the region that could give the Philippines more reason to lean away from the US.
But even then, it's like, what's the alternative? Just become another piece of China? Like, I don't. That's crazy. But I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. There's quite a few things that I felt like were kind of exaggerated. There was a lot of misinformation in this video. But I still think this was a great video to talk about because there's a lot of things I didn't know about in regards to the families, how the history of the families, how you had a vice president essentially threaten the president. I still think that's kind of, I mean, that first video was kind of wild, but the other stuff I feel like is kind of, I would need more context on. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Love you guys. Check it out on the next one. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.